So in this segment, we're going to be talking about what is Article 16. So I think quite a few other kind of people in the space have explained it, but I think Outside Views has done a video on it actually. But for those people who don't know or want to learn more about it, The Guardian cover it quite well in this article. I know a viewer sent me kind of a Word document with Article 16, and I thank you for that. But if it's okay with you, I'm going to just run with this Guardian article because it's a lot easier for a person like me to understand because I'm not the brightest. So, Article 16 is an emergency break in the Irish Protocol, the agreement that left Northern Ireland in the EU single market for and customs union for goods. The Johnson's Brexit model compatible with avoiding a hard border on the island of Ireland. So, out of the three options, border in the Irish Sea, so between GB and NI, hard border in Ireland, or a border around Ireland and sort of the other EU countries, France, for example. Now, we chose option one, a border between Northern Ireland and GB, or GB and Northern Ireland, because they don't do checks the other way because the government haven't figured out how to do that yet. So, Article 16 allows either side to take unilateral action if the protocol is causing serious economic, societal or environmental difficulties that are liable to persist. Now, the only way the government could argue this is through societal impacts after we've seen rising tensions in Northern Ireland, which is something we'll speak about in another video. That's the only possible angle they can use, and Sefcovic and the gang have been very careful to try and help businesses as much as possible. There are still some unionists who are like, that's not good enough, that's not good enough. And those are the people where they're TFGs, too far gone. You'll never convince them. They want a root and branch approach, which this article talks about. Now, serious difficulties are not defined, giving both sides leeway for interpretation. So what that means is the UK can try and use Article 16 through obscure kind of legal interpretations, but the EU are free to hit back with their own interpretations if they want to, which is something we'll explain a bit further on in the video. For example, the government might refuse to carry out checks on goods entering Northern Ireland from Great Britain by arguing such checks are diverting trade and causing difficulties for businesses. This is something Sefcovic has gone above and beyond to avoid, with things like medicines, Cumberland sausages and whatever else, you name it. They've tried to come up with some sort of measure to either get rid of the checks or reduce the checks, which is far more than the EU has done for any other third country. Does Article 16 cancel the protocol? No. And this is where I get very, very angry at news articles that do say like, oh yeah, you can do Article 16 and suspend the protocol. The BBC have been guilty of doing this, which in other articles we are going to talk about. Very frustrating. The Independent, as we've already covered, with their that video I made, liberal media praises Lord Frost. The guy said, oh, you can just trigger Article 16 and suspend the protocol. No, all it does is lead to more talks. Like, how you guys do not understand this. It took me a 1-minute Google search and about 3-4 minutes to read this article to understand what Article 16 actually does. Like, you guys suck. Honestly, you guys suck. Not the audience, the people who can't do this and have write articles. Like, don't make me do your job, please, because your job's more important than mine. So Article 16 is not a magic wand that waves away the protocol. This is only the start of another lengthy process with the EU. This process is detailed in another of the protocol's Annex 7. Another treaty clause that could soon enter the Brexit lexicon. Under Annex 7, triggering Article 16 launches the process of consultations with a view to find commonly acceptable solutions. So all it does is say, okay, Lord Frost says there's a problem here, and then the EU are like, okay, how do we resolve this? And it leads to more talks. That's all that happens. These talks happen through the Joint Committee, the political oversight group led by the Iceman and his EU counterpart, Maros Sefcovic, who's going to lose all his hair at the end of this. The government would have to give 1 month's notice of any unilateral action. So for them to say, we're going to use Article 16, get rid of the protocol immediately, that's not going to happen. You have to give 1 month's notice. Otherwise, by the looks of it, I'm no lawyer, but the government would be in breach of the agreement. If you have a law degree or you understand the protocol better than I do, which is 90% of the audience, you tell me, but very much sounds like if the UK immediately suspends certain checks using Article 16, we would be in breach of the agreement. and that legal action that's been put on pause might have some more papers added to it. It would also be expected to take part in regular consultations with the EU every 3 months with the aim of returning to protocol rules. So, every 3 months you'd be expected to go back to the EU and say, what's the problem? Article 16 is meant to be a temporary timeout, not an escape hatch, does not suspend the protocol. You can say, look, we got rid of this bit, what happens now? Which I guess will be the next point, which is that if either side disagrees with unilateral safeguard action, they can retaliate with proportional rebalancing measures. For example, the EU could hit British imports into the EU with tariffs, a part suspension of the broader EU-UK Free Trade Agreement, the TCA. The same bureaucratic process of notice and consultation would apply to retaliatory measures, so the EU would have to justify to the UK why they're sticking tariffs on sausages or whatever. Now, this could have happened the other way when in January the EU were going to trigger Article 16 over vaccines, and the UK could have taken retaliatory action, which we probably wouldn't have done because we don't do checks on imports, but we could have done so. So it works both ways. So Dublin, this was uproar Westminster in Dublin. EU politicians later described the threat by the European Commission, President von der Leyen's team, which was withdrawn after a few hours of frantic phone calls, as an accident. Essentially, the EU were desperate. I think there were certain members of the Commission who got desperate at the UK having more vaccines. We were importing vaccines from the EU but not exporting any, and the EU were like, bro, like this has to end. So we have to do something, and they were going to trigger Article 16. Then they spoke to the Taoiseach, and he was like, what are you doing? And they were like, don't mind us, nothing, bro, just discussing things and stuff. So yeah, that's what happened essentially. All it does is lead to more talks, and if one side, if say for example the UK say we're going to end checks on whatever, sausages, then you can say, okay, we're going to put tariffs on your sausages then, the ones you export to the EU, in retaliation to this. That's all that happens. That's all Article 16 does. It says, one side says we're going to do this thing, this is our justification for it, and the other side say, okay, that's fine, or the other side say, we're not going to do this, we're not accepting this, we're going to put tariffs on these goods in retaliation. And that's all Article 16 does. That's all it allows. It's more talks, essentially, and it allows one side to retaliate against the other. For all of those kind of journalists and people who keep saying, Article 16 is the magic wand. If Article 16 was the magic wand, Frost would have triggered it by now. There's a reason why he hasn't done so. He's been talking big since March, I think. That's what, 7 months, 6 months? He's been giving it the big talk, I'm going to trigger Article 16 unless you take a root and branch approach. Why not trigger it then? Do it, fam. Do it. What are you waiting for? Unless it's not the thing you claim it is, and that's why you haven't done so. That's my only interpretation, because he's saying he wants a root and branch approach. He wants the whole thing renegotiated. Surely, if Article 16, is the magic wand that waves away the protocol, why don't you just trigger it? And then that's going to force the EU to renegotiate, isn't it? Because then the protocol is gone. And there's a massive hole blown open in the single market. Unless, Frost, it doesn't do what you say it does. Is that it? Is that it, Frost? Because honestly, he's going to trigger Article 16 and we're going to hear this sound. That's what's going to happen. Nothing. It's not going to kill the protocol like when Mario gets hit by shells or by Goombas or by Bowser. It leads to more talks. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. You can tell I'm incredibly frustrated doing this video because of the amount of disinformation thanks to the British press. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support on Patreon if you can. Support The Guardian if you want to. They do good work. Probably the best sort of left-wing newspaper we have in the UK, honestly, even though they do have clangers on occasion. But I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Shouts out Jennifer Rankin for writing this article, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.